Hello everyone. In this tutorial I'm going to talk about how to make the first few rows of the Ruffled Waters Shawl. This is the hardest part to make the first few rows. Once you have those, then the pattern gets much easier. So when you start with leaving a longish tail, a few inches, 4 to 5 inches, and I will talk about why that is later. Next we start with chain 7. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and now I'm going to make the foundation row in the top and back loops, just like we make well, I usually make my foundation row in single crochet, regular crochet like that. So just pick the 2 loops. I have a separate tutorial for this. I'll add a link to it in the description. So I'm going to go ahead and make my foundation row. All the way till the end. And here it is. So I have 7 loops on the hook now. So that's 2 4 6 7, and the return pass is the same in for all the rows in this shawl. So I don't even have instructions for that with the forward pass for every row. So in the pattern you'll only find forward pass instructions for every row. For the reverse pass, there is just one instruction, and that's at the top of the pattern. Again, this is explained in my foundation row tutorial, so you're welcome to look at that. So I'm just going to start making the reverse pass, and here it is. This is row 1 with 7 foundation stitches. Now for the second row we make a Tunisian full stitch. So in this shawl, whenever I mention a Tunisian full stitch, just find the next space between 2 stitches. So here, this is the first stitch and this is the second stitch, and this is the space between the 2 stitches, and insert your hook there. Yarn over and pull through. That's my Tunisian full stitch. Again, I have a separate tutorial for Tunisian full stitch available, and you can find a link to that in the description as well. So I made a Tunisian full stitch. Now I will decrease. So decrease involves the next 2 stitches. So you pick the vertical bar of the next 2 stitches at once. So 1 2, yarn over and pull through both of them. So that essentially decrease, it reduced from 2 stitches to 1 stitch. Now yarn over. So this maintains stitch count. So we reduced from 2 to 1, but then we added another stitch. So that's yarn over, and then Tunisian full stitch again. Now at this point, find the space between the next the current stitch and the next stitch. So this is the space, and we will insert our hook there and yarn over, pull through. That's a full stitch. Now knit stitch. So this stitch is, so this is the center stitch. This is the 4th stitch from both sides, and this stitch, there will be a knit stitch in this stitch here, and throughout the shawl you will see that the center stitch for the entire shawl will align with this one. So it will be good to put a stitch marker here and move it after a few rows, every few rows, so that you know where your center is. So the stitches to the left and right of this stitch will be mirror images of each other. So whatever you did on this side will be done in the opposite direction on the other side, and this will form the spine of the scarf. I'm sorry, of the shawl. So make a knit stitch here, and then Tunisian full stitch again. So this is the current stitch and this is the next one. Find the space between them Tunisian full stitch, then decrease, so find the next 2 stitches, 1 2, decrease, yarn over, and then Tunisian full stitch again, the space between the stitches here, Tunisian full stitch, and then the last stitch. The last stitch is made differently. You go through the last 2 vertical bars and yarn over, pull through. Again, this is explained in my foundation row tutorial. You're welcome to go check that out over there. So we have 2 4 6 8 10 11 stitches, 11 loops on the hook at this point. So the reverse pass is exactly the same. Going to chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2, all the way to the beginning. Okay, so this is how this row 2 looks, and I'm going to add a stitch marker right here. So this is my stitch, this is my center stitch, so you will have equal number of stitches on both sides from this stitch. So now row 3, again Tunisian full stitch. So for that, it is very easy to miss this Tunisian full stitch from the previous row, so please look at your stitches carefully when you start. Find the space between the current stitch and the next stitch and make a Tunisian full stitch there, and then we make a TSS, that's a Tunisian simple stitch here. So I have tutorials for the Tunisian simple stitch, for the decrease, for Tunisian full stitch, for the foundation row. Everything is available separately. I will add a link in the description, so just so you know that you can find all of those tutorials separately. So I made the Tunisian full stitch, there is the simple stitch and then another simple stitch in the next, and then this is our chain space here. We made a yarn over, so that creates a space from the previous row. So you insert your, so the pattern says TFS in the chain space, so this is the chain space, yarn over, pull through, so that makes the TFS, then TSS, and TFS. So TFS again in between the next two, the current and the next stitch here, so that's a TFS, and then a knit stitch. So this is where we've reached the center, so we make a knit stitch and then TFS, so between this and the next, and TSS again, sorry, that was a TFS, so now TSS, simple stitch, and then sorry, I think I've missed something, so I made a full stitch and then a simple stitch, okay, here, and then a simple stitch again, and then a full stitch in the chain space. So this is the chain space on the other side, so TFS and then TSS again here and TFS. So this will be between the last stitch and the current stitch, so find that space, it's right here, and then the last stitch. So now the reverse pass is the same as the previous row, this is how it looks. So you can see that the left and right sides from the central stitch are the same. Now let's make row 4. So this time there is no TFS, so we will make a TSS simple stitch in the next, and then decrease. So about reading the pattern, so if you see that in the pattern it says decrease yarn over within brackets 2 times, so that means you have to make a decrease yarn over and then a decrease yarn over. So the instructions in the brackets are repeated twice. So we do a decrease yarn over and then another decrease and yarn over, and then a Tunisian simple stitch. You have to make sure that all of these stitches are before the center stitch, before you make your knit stitch. So we're okay so far. So that's your TSS and then a TFS. So here is the TFS and then the knit stitch. And a Tunisian full stitch again. Oh, wrong space. Here, Tunisian full stitch, and then simple stitch, and then a decrease, yarn over, decrease, yarn over, and then a simple stitch and a last stitch. So the number of stitches now, the number of loops are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. So that's the other thing. The number of stitches on your loop will always be an odd number. That is because of that there'll be equal number of stitches on the 2 sides of that center stitch. So that's an odd number. So now we'll make the reverse pass. All the way till the beginning. So that's how it looks after row 4. So earlier there was, in the previous, I think it was row 2, there was this one sort of hole, and now we've made 2. So this will build the lace pattern. So this shawl is made of bands of 2 patterns. One is this lace pattern, and then there is a band of knit stitches. So this band will have these little holes. They're staggered, they don't sit on top of each other. So if you see that this one is in between these 2, so that's what you need to make sure. That's how it is. It wouldn't matter if your stitch count was a little off and they did not align this way, but that is how the pattern is. That is how I intended it to be. Now row 5, I'm going to make a couple more rows for you to see how it looks. So row 5 is Tunisian full stitch, simple stitch. Again, there is a repeat here, so simple stitch, TFS and chain space twice. So TSS, TFS and chain space, TSS, TFS and chain space, then TSS 2 times. So there is no brackets here. So there are no brackets here, so that means that that one instruction is supposed to be repeated 2 times. So the next 2 stitches will be a TSS. So TSS and then TSS. That's TSS 2 times. Then a TFS, so a full stitch here. So did I get it wrong? I think I did. So that's my TSS, and here is my TFS. And then the knit stitch, the full stitch, TSS twice, so 1, 2, and then TSS and TFS and chain space 2 times. So TSS, TFS and chain space, TSS, TFS and chain space, and then TSS, and then a full stitch, and then the last stitch. Then we make the reverse pass. All right, so that's row 5, and that's how it looks. So you can continue making this now. There are a lot of repeats in this pattern, so it's not, once you get a hang of the pattern, there's not much to remember. You should be able to understand the pattern and not have to look at the pattern document too often after you've made a few rows. So that's how it is, and I'm going to stop here and then I'll pick it up again. I'll show you how to do a couple of rows of the knit stitches. Here's what I have after row 11. So that is 11 rows of the first band, and now I'm going to make the band of knit stitches. So I'm going to start making row 12. So the first stitch in row 12 is the Tunisian full stitch that is made here in the first space. Then it's knit stitch 19 times. So you find the next stitch, make a knit stitch here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So that's 19 knit stitches, then a full stitch. So I moved my marker up, so this is the spine. If you see that I have this one line here of knit stitches that forms the central spine of the shawl. So now after the full stitch, there's the knit stitch that happens in the central stitch. So the knit stitch, and then a full stitch, and then knit stitch 19 times. So there was my full stitch, here's my first. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 knit stitches, and then a full stitch over here in this space here, and then a last stitch there. So that should be 45 stitches, 45 loops on my hook. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 45. So 45 loops on the hook. And now make my reverse pass just like I would normally. So chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2 loops all the way. That's the center of that line, and back. And there. So this is what it looks like. There is a row of knit stitches. So the knit stitches curl a little bit, and if you are not planning to make the entire scarf or you'd like to stop midway, I recommend stopping at the band that has the lace pattern and not the knit pattern. Blocking might fix it, but that's just my personal preference, and that's what I recommend. So this is, you can just continue working the knit stitch band just like the one that we just made, and then the pattern is just a repetition of this band, and then the knit stitch band, and then this band again, and then the knit stitch band. So all the way till the end, and then there is a ruffle at the end. That's another, I believe it's 3 or 4 rows. So that's it. That's all you need to know to make this shawl, and I hope you will have fun while making it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can leave me a comment here, or you could join my Facebook group. All the details are in the description. Thank you.